Chapter 15, Part 2. When the Egyptians had assembled the next afternoon, bringing their offerings of oil and spice and salt and perfume, Toby, Ramos, gave a little talk on how to prepare a mummy. It was a good speech, but it suffered from frequent interruptions because Bastet and Ada had read the same book and had some ideas of their own, and there was another pause while everyone tried to comfort Queen Neferbeth, who got all upset when Ramos spoke indelicately about taking out the guts. It turned out that Queen Neferbeth felt so strongly about cutting holes in Petey, even if he was dead, that it was decided to dispense with that part of the procedure. "It'll be all right, Toby, Ramos," Horembeb said. "He's so little he can't have enough guts to make that much difference." Toby was disappointed, but he had to admit that according to the book, there was another way. Poor people who couldn't afford the more expensive process had been simply soaked in brine. So the rest of the afternoon was taken up in preparing a saltwater bath for Prince Ptahhotep and placing him in it with the proper pomp. Then he was left to soak. The appearance of the mummy-to-be when he was removed from his brine bath on the following afternoon was something of a shock to everyone. His wet feathers stuck to his tiny body, and he was covered with a thick, white, salty scum. When Toby lifted him gingerly out of the brine by one claw, everybody felt a little queasy, and Elizabeth's eyes became suspiciously liquid. Toby glanced at her and sighed impatiently. "Now, just cool it a minute, Neferbeth," he said. "I'll have 'em all fixed up in 2 seconds." He hastily poured some fresh water over the parakeet and dried him off on the tail of his T-shirt, which was huge and dingy and probably belonged to his father. When Ptahhotep was dry and his feathers rearranged, he did look almost as good as new, and the mummification process continued. In the next few days, he was anointed with spices and perfume, wrapped in thin strips of oil-soaked cloth, and laid to rest with a supply of birdseed and a few of his favorite toys, in a smallish pyramid made of old bricks. It was a good week in the land of Egypt. Melanie collected several new ceremonies to add to the sacred records. Ken began to find being an ancient Egyptian a little less embarrassing, and Elizabeth felt so proud of the important part that Petey had played, she almost forgot how much she missed him. But as the Egypt game became second nature to the 6 participants, and they began to feel more and more at home in the land of Egypt, they gradually began to forget about being cautious. Ceremonies, discussions, and arguments began to be carried on in normal, or even louder than normal tones, and no one stopped to worry about being overheard. Only one very small Egyptian had an idea that the land of Egypt was being watched, and for some reason, which was his own and private, he didn't choose to tell.